Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. You spend a significant portion of your life at work, so my goal is to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I am delighted to welcome my very special guest to the show today, Rita Sever. Rita, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, Rita, I am too. I was telling you before the show started that I love, love, love your new book, Supervision Matters, 100 bite-sized ideas to transform you and your team. I've literally got it dog-eared and highlighted and bookmarked, and I keep it at my desk. It is a fantastic resource. But I want to tell our listening audience a little bit about you before we dive into that conversation. Nonprofits and corporations have been benefiting, Rita, from your unified approach to organizational development for the past 20 years. You are a certified professional coach with an MA in organizational psychology, and you focus on the critical role of employee supervision in organizations. You approach supervision as a primary leadership function, and you believe that each action a supervisor takes positively or negatively impacts the organization. So true. And as I said, Rita, your extraordinary new book is Supervision Matters, 100 bite-sized ideas to transform you and your idea. Okay, coach to coach, what inspired you to write this book, Rita?
Well, thank you for your great words about my book. That was my hope, that it would sit on people's desks and be a resource. So thank you for confirming that. So as you said, I was an HR director for 15 years inside an organization. And during that time, I saw the impact of supervision on staff, both positively and negatively. And staff would tell me that they felt either supported by their supervisor and really engaged and excited to do their work, or they felt ignored by them, or even worse, denigrated by them. So when I was ready to start my own business about 10 years ago, I happened to read a study that confirmed what I knew, that the number one reason people leave their job is because of their supervisor. So I decided to call my business Supervision Matters, just like I called my book Supervision Matters. And once I decided to focus on supervision, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had ideas about it all the time, even literally out for a walk, I'd go, ooh, that's something important in supervision. And so I started writing a monthly newsletter and drawing inspiration from all kinds of places, reading Goldilocks to my grandchild, listening to a conversation at Starbucks. And a couple of years ago, I decided that I really wanted to make these ideas available in one place for people to access. And it sounded like an easy idea to put them into a book, but it was a lot more complicated than I expected. So I'm thrilled it's a actual book and out there for people to read.
Well, you know, what I love about it is you distill it into manageable action steps. And Rita, as you and I know as coaches, and you with your extraordinary background in organizational psychology and HR, we don't always teach people how to be great supervisors. And this resource does just that. So it is truly a magnificent resource. But let's talk a little bit more. Who do you think benefits most from the book's management advice? Who's the ideal reader?
Well, I'm probably a little biased, but I think anybody can benefit from this. As you said, when people are promoted into a management position, the focus is on the general concept of management. And it's actually fairly rare that people get training in how to supervise other people. And yet it is so critical to the success of the organization. And when people don't get trained, they just act as they've been supervised. So they do what they've seen. And sometimes that works, but often it doesn't. And so I think this is, as you suggested, a great resource for new supervisors, especially if they take time to do the reflection questions. At the end of each section, I have what I call a coaching corner, and that can really help you personalize the advice and understand how you show up as a supervisor.
I'm going to take the liberty of expanding that audience too, because I myself have learned so much, and I'm a career development geek, right? I'm a coach. I'm someone who works with recruiters and hiring managers. I myself have been a supervisor for over a decade, and I still learned new things in this book. So I would tell you that the audience is quite expansive. Yes, it is great for the emerging leader, rookie supervisor, but also for those of us that have been around a while and need to dust off and sharpen our supervisory skills.
That's great to hear, and I've heard that from people. I've had people come up to me after a workshop and say, "I've been a supervisor for 25 years, and I learned so much." So that's really encouraging and exciting to know, because I think part of it is that piece of reflecting and how do I show up and how do I respond and how could I do it different.
Yeah, and how do I customize it for the individuals whom I'm supervising? And to that point, you emphasize so beautifully in the book the need for regular meetings. So share with me some of your thinking about that.
Yes, that's one of my very favorite and most common recommendations. If people don't do anything else, I think this alone can help them be a better supervisor. Too often, managers just assume that they're on the same page with their staff. And sometimes they are, especially at the beginning of a project, they are on the same page. But when they don't talk regularly, and even more importantly, don't listen regularly, things slip aside. They get farther apart. And so it's really important to have a regularly scheduled one-on-one meeting planned with your staff. So it's on the calendar, you both can look forward to it, you both can plan for it, and you can prepare for it. I suggest people keep a list on their desk so both the supervisor and the supervisee can keep notes for that meeting. And when you meet like that, you catch problems earlier, you're able to address them, you find out if there's misunderstandings on either side about what the priorities are or how things are supposed to happen. And while you're doing that, you're building a relationship that helps you communicate even better. And so I recommend that people meet. It can be weekly, bi-weekly, at least monthly, depending on the job, the tenure, and how things are going.
And for all the busy leaders out there saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't have time for that." Actually, I think they do. It's an investment in their team, in those individuals. And as you say in the book, these need not be mega meetings. These can be brief check-ins. Do you want to speak to that?
Exactly. I think it really is an investment because it will save time in the long run. And yes, my go-to form for these meetings is 3 questions. What's working, what's not working, and what's next, meaning what are the priorities coming up. And the bottom line is it's a two-way conversation. That's the essential piece. So it can be short, but it has to be consistent.
Very good. So explain for me what a unified approach to HR and OD is, Rita.
Okay, so first let me make sure everybody understands those acronyms. HR is Human Resources and OD is Organization Development. And both are focused on the people in an organization. Traditionally, HR has been focused on the technical components of the staffing, hiring, orienting staff, training staff, and making sure compliance and benefits administration is completed. Organization development is focused on change management and human systems. So often they work very well together, but sometimes they don't. And what I bring is experience and training in both fields. And in my mind, they're so interrelated, it really is impossible for me to separate them. So I approach organizations and individuals in organizations with an awareness and understanding of how systems work, how teams work, how human resources work, what the laws are, All of that matters and affects how I approach a team. So, my bottom line philosophy is you want to work in a way that helps people stay engaged and happy in their work, and then the whole organization will be more successful.
So true. The engagement studies are fascinating to me because highly engaged workers are regularly going above and beyond their job description. They're happy, they're more productive. It just makes good sense. So, Rita, one of the joys of this show is that we have a global reach and we have millions of listeners in our audience around the world. So, I'm sure many people listening are saying, oh, I need Rita. I need to hire her to help me with X. What might that be? How might your consultant coach services benefit someone listening?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm happy to talk about that. When I meet a new client, I start with the basic question of what's going on. Basically, I ask the questions that I suggested supervisors ask. What's working, what's not working, what's most important to you right now. From that, I sometimes work one-on-one with an individual leader to help them address problems they're facing, how to get someone to be accountable, how to help someone understand they don't have the skills for the job, or how to support a superstar. Sometimes I work in an individual to help them develop their skills as a supervisor. And I also approach teams and organizations. I do a lot of trainings, all kinds of trainings around supervision. And that really helps an organization build common language, common expectations, and sometimes I help organizations codify that. What are the standards you want to hold your supervisors to? And that really helps tremendously. Beyond that, I do one-on-one coaching to help underline what they learn in the training. I do what I call coaching circles, which are really fun. Working with a team of 8 to 12 supervisors and help them focus on a topic and then have reflection time and learn to coach and support each other. So that's a really fun thing I do, especially when I can go back to an organization and do several of those. That really helps normalize the training and the skills that I'm suggesting they use.
I love that. I love the coaching circles. I think that's an extraordinary, powerful tool. And, thank you for identifying that supervising is not just helping the problem people overcome the weaknesses or mitigate the blind spots. It's helping to encourage the rock stars to continue to thrive and to get to that next level. So it is not just dealing with problems. It's also celebrating and recognizing great work.
Absolutely, because unfortunately that's one of the problems is that managers are so busy they focus on the problems and then the superstars become disengaged. So yes, that's pretty.
So, Rita, I'd love for you to pull one or two of the 100 bite-sized ideas because it really is. It's just chock full of such robust information. But whet our appetite with one or two from Supervision Matters that might not be obvious to those listening.
Let's see. Well, the conversation I mentioned when I overheard, I was just having a coffee at Starbucks and I overheard a couple at the table next to me talking. And it became clear as I was trying to focus on my book that I was reading, but I couldn't help overhearing them. And it became clear they were meeting for the first time. And as the conversation went on, I wanted to just jump in because what I heard was the man in this couple just kept talking and talking and talking about himself. And the woman couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I wanted to turn and say, shut up and let her have a chance to talk. But of course I didn't. I was well behaved. But that was an example where I thought that happens in supervision so often. Manager just talks and talks and talks and doesn't listen to the staff. And that doesn't work. It has to be a two-way conversation. So that's an example of that segment is probably 400 words, takes less than 2 minutes to read, but it's a really important lesson, a really important bite-sized idea for a supervisor to hold on to.
Brilliant. Love that.
Thank
So, Rita, let's talk a little bit more. You are out there in a beautiful way on the social media platforms. How can listeners learn more about your work? What are some additional resources that complement the book?
Well, I have a website, supervisionmatters.com, all one word. I have a Facebook page, Supervision Matters. You can like me on Facebook. And I've just recently started on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is Supervision Help. And I'm actually doing a self-imposed challenge to tweet once a day for 60 days to really try to get used to the idea of 140 characters, because that's a stretch for me. I'm used to bite size, but this is like tidbit size.
Exactly. Well, that's exciting, Rita. And before we talk about how to buy the book, what's next for you? So many exciting things coming down the road.
Yes, well, I'm thrilled to be out there promoting my book and meeting people and talking about their supervision challenges. I'm developing a new training right now for supervisors about how to onboard staff, not the technical orientation, but as a supervisor. How can I set my staff up to be successful in this job? So that's really fun. I love developing new trainings. And I just love working with my clients and meeting my next client and helping them be successful. I work with mission-driven clients, and I love knowing that I can help them be even more supportive of their mission.
Well, Rita, you are doing extraordinary work, and I am personally grateful, and I know our listening audience is grateful as well. Tell us how we can buy the book. And again, the title is Supervision Matters, 100 Bite-Sized Ideas to Transform You and Your Team.
Well, the book's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and if it's not at your local bookstore, they can certainly get it. So I would love people to have this resource and buy the book.
Excellent. Rita Sever, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise. I wish you continued success with your great work, and I hope our paths cross again soon.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. Career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. My show is now available on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and Stitcher. Leave a comment because I always appreciate hearing from my listeners. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.